Selling in the billions each year, Rainbow Mealworms is your one-stop shop for all your insect needs. Their quality feeders and A-plus customer service keep me coming back to support the health and growth of all of our animals. Visit them today at rainbowmealworms.net to place your order.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Geeky Gecko Creations Live. So this is just our traditional Monday Night Live. Tonight, I'm going to be doing a little bit of cleaning while talking to you guys and checking the chat at the same time. So feel free to drop a question if you got anything, and I'll address it. Now I can show our new shirt color. This is the #1 shirt that was voted off of our social media platforms. And so we stocked this in the most amount of sizes and whatnot. But I think it's pretty cool. So you got the tribal lizard on the front with the branding, Geeky Gecko Creations. Then you got all the social media on the back with another tribal lizard. So I think it's pretty cool. Norman Davis here for the action. How's it going, Norman? Man, it is starting. So in Arizona, it's kind of weird. We don't really feel the effects of cold until like December, because November is perfectly fine. But it's starting to get cold, like for our tegus outside and stuff. So I just had to bring them in this week. It's getting down to like the low 30s. And next week, I think, is even projected into the 20s. And so I definitely want to get the tegus in the garage where it stays more around 50 to 60 in the garage. So what's going on, Bam Bam? Last Friday, we didn't have a guest, which worked out really good because I had my wife's work Christmas party, which was fun to be able to get away and get some good food and have a good time with her coworkers there. So, but if you guys didn't see it, Ron Tremper was interviewed by Evan from Strength in Leos, and I'm about halfway through that episode. So that's an iconic interview because, you know, Ron Tremper, the godfather, as we call him around here, of leopard geckos, supposedly he's going to be moving back to the United States, and he has no plans of retaking over his business because the lady that he sold the business to, she's going to continue to run it. But he's still in the background, you know, kind of working on geckos and enjoying things. I found out that his #1 passion is actually not leopard geckos necessarily, but redfoot tortoises. So that's pretty cool. Back to the no hair. We're also going to be live on Rodriguez Reptiles channel tomorrow. So if you guys don't know who Rodriguez Reptiles is, he also runs a pretty awesome live stream for reptiles where he invites on really cool reptile people. And so we're fortunate to be on an episode with him tomorrow night, which is going to be 7 o'clock Mountains, Arizona time. But if you head over to his channel, you could check out what time zone it is for you. Denise Ray. Oh, that was another thing, Denise. If you missed it, Ron Tremper was on an interview with Evan from Strength in Leos, and he talked about being 2 years away from creating a super giant black knight. Now, I still need to watch the rest of the episode. So far, they haven't talked about his theory of super giant being recessive. But that's a question I'd like to ask him, you know, if we ever got to talk to him in an interview, is why he thinks it's recessive. And of course, now with genetic testing coming out, we can prove what genes are recessive and what are not. Yeah, let me know if the freezing happens. I'm not really sure what I could do necessarily. Maybe lower the resolution a little bit, but it could also be just because we have more people in the house right now sharing the Wi-Fi. So that could be taking up some bandwidth. But we'll do the best that we can. Yeah, Rodriguez Reptiles, he's good. You know, whenever you're cleaning reptiles and stuff, like I'm cleaning right now, it's good to have something to listen to. So I really like having different live streamers and different reptile podcasters to listen to. Each of, you know, especially ones that have different personalities and kind of break the norm a little bit. So like I have my humorous ones, I got my candid ones, I got my just informational ones. You know, I got all these different podcasts that I like to listen to, you know. Oh, cool. Glad it's fixed. So I'm not going to come in with too many topics off the top of my head right now because um, we are going out to dinner with my wife's parents here before they leave tomorrow. So I want to make sure I get some cleaning done right now, just so that I don't have as much to do after dinner. So if you guys got topics or questions, feel free and I'll kind of talk about it. Um, yeah, Denise, they were saying that there was a problem with that. I'm not sure if we can really fix the buffering or not, but I mean, I really don't want to lower the resolution because I'm so happy to finally have 1080p. But let's give it a sec. Let's give it a little bit. Sometimes depending on what time it is in your location, you could have a lot of people eating up that bandwidth from like wherever your internet provider is, and that seems to cause issues from time to time. But let's see what we got cleaning wise. By the way, I do not like the peat moss as the substrate. Um, I was hoping the peat moss would make it quicker and easier for me to clean, but it doesn't. So I'm going back to newspaper and paper towels. When you're working on mass scale like this, every second counts. And not only is it dustier um, in the atmosphere in general, when you have 300 tubs full of peat moss, it's dustier, but also it's not quicker to change out. And that was my main goal, was to see if it was quicker to change out, and it's not. So we're going to go back to newspaper and paper towel. But Brooke, glad you could make it. Brooke, Yvette, glad you could make it. Yeah, Denise. I mean, the more people that are working Black Knight Supergiant, the more bloodlines that we can incorporate into the project as a whole. So even if, let's say, 10 people were working on Black Knight Supergiant right now, that's a good thing, because that just means that there's more diversity of lines to get into. Now, here's the question that I'm wondering about is, can we get an all black animal in giant form? Because as of right now, the blackest of the blackest Black Knights that we see are typically all around 40 to 50 grams. They're all smaller, right? But when a gecko has more body size for that pigment that it needs to expand out towards, I think it would be super cool if we had a 80 to 90 gram, leopard gecko that is all black from tip of the nose to the tip of the tail. But I don't know if that's going to be possible. So that's something that we'll have to see. Denise would probably be more ahead of that than I would be in as far as recognizing if that's possible, since she's working the Black Knight Supergiant. But Denise, we still got to get you on a live this Friday. I have another party I need to go to this Friday, so if I do a live stream this Friday, it's probably going to be earlier in the day. But let me know if this Friday works good for you, Denise, because I'd love to get you on an interview. We're also trying to get Geckos by Sophie on an interview to kind of stick with our European vibe that we've been vibing on with our last interview that we had with Dragoon Gecko. Geckos by Sophie has a lot of Dragoon geckos while Dragoon was away, and so it'll be cool to talk to Geckos by Sophie and see her Black Knight Ghost and white and yellow ghosts and everything that she's got, Okay, cool. Maybe it just took a sec for everything to get motion in. I'm going to grab some more tubs and I'll be cleaning while we go. Oh, these little Afghanicuses are so small. Sometimes you get little itty bitty babies out of eggs, I've heard other breeders say that they experience that later on in the season. You know what I mean? Like, because for whatever reason, the mom's been producing, and so the embryos aren't as sizable at the end of the season as compared to the beginning of the season. I can't necessarily say I've had that same observation, but I've had the observation that some geckos just hatch out small in general, you know? So I like to start off baby leopard geckos on paper towel for the first, I want to say at least till they're a month old. And then once they're a month old, maybe one and a half to 2 months old, I'll move them to newspaper. And the reason for that transition is because newspaper is thicker and stronger, and I don't want them accidentally getting stuck under the newspaper if they're too small. But if they're bigger, there's no threat of them getting stuck under the newspaper. So Firebolt Tangle Crust project right now. Would love to see more orange in that Firebolt. Yeah, I mean, for you guys who don't know, the ultimate goal of what Firebolt is, as far as I know, is it's meant to be the same thing that Bull Stripe is, but with tangerine. So instead of a yellow gecko with black stripes, it's supposed to be an orange gecko with black stripes, and that's what the project is kind of working towards. I need to grab a different size of worms real quick. Okay, here's a pro tip too for insects during the winter. Pro tip number one, if you can, have a refrigerator that can store mealworms for up to 3 months. That way, if there's ever a shortage or if you want to get the best deal is always ordering mealworms in bulk. And so if you have a refrigerator or a small section of your refrigerator that you could dedicate to mealworms, like we have a completely different refrigerator, but when we first started, we actually just dedicated a small portion of our regular refrigerator to it. I'm not saying everyone's going to be cool with that, but either way, if you can store up extra mealworms, that's going to protect you from mealworm shortages. It's also going to help you save money because buying in bulk is cheaper. Now, the reason that I say that right now is because the Christmas season is going to get busy. It's going to get hectic, and FedEx and UPS and USPS is going to back up like crazy. I walked into a USPS the other day, and they had boxes from the door to the wall to the ceiling. Like you could barely walk in the store. They had boxes. So if you're a reptile person, you need your food. You can't let your animals go without food. So pro tip number two is order a lot in advance. So my normal order per month right now during our slow season, my normal order might be like 60 to 80,000 mealworms a month. But I just bumped that up this month to 120,000 mealworms. I doubled my normal order because if there's repercussions of supply chain issues in December and things get backed up and rainbow mealworms, just like all other companies, aren't able to meet the demand or packages are getting lost because of the excessive amount of packages in the mail system during Christmas time, if something happens to one of my future orders, I'll be okay because I have a 2 month supply. So that's pro tip number two is during the holiday season, especially the winter holiday seasons, order 2 to 3 times what you would normally order in advance and store that away so that you can have that as a buffer for 2 to 3 months if something was to go wrong with the supply chain. I don't know if you guys remember, but 2 years ago, something went wrong with the supply chain and nobody could get mealworms for like 3 months. So either breed your own stuff or to protect yourself from doing that, you can order in bulk and store in the refrigerator. That's the great thing about mealworms, you know? So anyway, I just placed my order yesterday because I learned my lesson. Here's another tip. I've noticed sometimes, not every time, but ordering mealworms on Monday is the cheapest shipping rate. For example, when did I order mealworms last? I think it was 2 weeks ago. I ordered mealworms on Wednesday night, so it would ship on Thursday. And 2 day shipping for the amount that I ordered was, I think it was like $120 for 2 day shipping. Um, just yesterday, or no, sorry, just this morning, which is Monday morning, I ordered this. I ordered more than I ordered 2 weeks ago. I ordered 20,000 mealworms more than I did 2 weeks ago, and it was $60 less. It was half the price. And I've noticed that before. And I tried to reach out to Rainbow to see if they could give me any advice on best days of the week to order feeders. I think it varies a little bit because on a different Monday, it was back up to the high price. So I don't know what's going on, but I would start looking like, if you're going to order worms, I would start looking on Monday and keep mental note of that price. And if Mondays winds up being the best and cheapest way for you to order because of shipping, then you could always be prepared and order your worms on Monday. Now, this doesn't become that big of a deal until you start ordering over 40,000 mealworms. Once you start ordering over 40,000 mealworms, the weight of that package really starts bumping up the price of shipping a lot. Like I said, 2 weeks ago, it cost me $120 just for shipping. Yesterday, it was only $70. So it was about a $50 difference. Just about half the price, which is pretty crazy. And I have no idea why, but I noticed that sometimes on some days and on some weeks, shipping is cheaper earlier in the week. I can't say that it's like that all the time. I'm going to be studying that now and trying to observe that more. But I believe in the past, I've tried to order on Mondays and it was still expensive. But this is like the second or third time now that I've noticed that shipping was half price on Monday compared to if I order later in the week. I actually have this gecko on one of our Instagram videos because it has a really cool pattern on its back that kind of looks like a Halloween face. Can you see it? Like a ghost face or something like that. Another thing with black knights, sometimes they're going to hatch smaller than an average gecko. So you can see this is a really, really small gecko. Which small geckos hatch sometimes from any mutation, but because black knight is typically a smaller gecko, then typically the babies are going to hatch out a little bit smaller sometimes. So black knight breeding, I'd say black knight breeding is like, you should have a little bit of experience under your belt if you're breeding black knights and you don't want to lose any of the babies, because the baby black knights take a little bit extra care than a normal leopard gecko baby. And you already know normal leopard gecko babies are already sensitive animals, you know what I mean, compared to taking care of an adult. They need their humidity, they need the proper size food, they need the proper nutrition, and all of those are very important. Otherwise, that baby is going to crash, possibly die. And it's the same with black knights. Because they're born a little bit smaller, they just require that extra touch of experience and care, you know? For example, all of my geckos drink out of water bowls. But with a gecko that's smaller, like a black knight gecko that's smaller, or a gecko that's having health issues, when I clean their tub, I'll spray the side of the enclosure just a little bit, because I've noticed that some geckos like to some baby geckos only like to drink off the sides of the wall at first, and they don't really like to drink out of a bowl. Um, I would say that's very rare, but I've noticed that with some geckos, even though they have water in their bowl, they won't drink. And by the next cleaning, they're like dehydrated. So what I do for them is spray the side of the tub, and that helps. But it's little tips and tricks like that that you learn over time that will help you with different animals that are going through different issues. You know what I mean? And if you're going to breed, animals are going to go through issues. It's just going to happen. So I'm also attending a party. What about towards the end of the month? Yeah, Denise. Yes. So we got Denise. We got Denise in. Denise Ray right here. If you check out her website or her social media, which is Golden Gecko, she's also a part of our Facebook page, which is Non-Judgmental Leopard Gecko Keepers and Breeders. She's a great piece of advice kind of person that helps people out on that page. You'll get to see and talk to her. I'm really excited to talk to her because she has over 20 years of experience in the hobby. It's good her brain and talk about different things that she's got going on, which, by the way, she's one of the only people in the world right now that are really, really close to producing Black Knight super giants. So that's going to obviously be a really exciting topic to talk to her about. Sorry, I lost my spot, so I'm finding it right now. Okay. David says, I order in bulk as well. I had 30 geckos, so I ordered 20,000, and that lasts me 3 to 4 months. Perfect. That's a great example of how to be efficient with your resources, you know? Because another thing is, as you order mealworms, you'll quickly start to find out that shipping sometimes is the most expensive part of ordering mealworms. Like I kid you not, if I order $100 worth of mealworms, sometimes the shipping is $100, especially in the summertime when I need it overnighted to me. So shipping is almost sometimes as much as the mealworms are. So if you can order in bulk, I figured out the number. Okay, here's another tip. Okay, put 20,000 or 40,000, put whatever amount of mealworms in your cart that you want to order. So like this morning, when I went to rainbowmealworms.net, shout out to the sponsor, you can see them right here. When I put mealworms into the cart, I put 140,000 mealworms into the cart. And then I started playing around with prices as far as what shipping would cost. So 140,000 mealworms cost like $140, or it was like $160 or something for shipping. But then when I bumped it down 20,000 mealworms, it bumped the price down to only $120 for shipping. So I saved like 30 to 40 extra dollars on shipping by just bumping down the amount of mealworms that I ordered. So by playing around with shipping costs, you can find out what is most valuable for you as far as what you're willing to pay shipping wise to get it in bulk, you know? And the reason I say that is because if I order one big order, even if my shipping cost is very expensive, that shipping cost might be cheaper than ordering two smaller orders that will have a higher shipping cost. Does that make sense? So that's a possibility as well. So finding that sweet spot of what is best price for price shipping wise, that's also a tip that you can learn. I found out for me, for 2 day shipping, 100,000 mealworms is my sweet spot. But like I said, this Monday, 100,000 mealworms was only $67 to ship, and 120,000 mealworms was 120,000 mealworms was still $67. So see, I might as well order 20 extra thousand mealworms because I'm paying the same shipping price. But this is what I was trying to get at earlier. When I bumped it up to 140,000 mealworms, the shipping went from $67 to $87, and that was no longer worth it to me. Because remember, I was only trying to get around 100,000, but I'll order more if I could save on shipping. You know what I mean? So on this order specifically, 120,000 mealworms was the same shipping cost as 100,000 mealworms, and therefore, in the long run, because I could just store them in the refrigerator, I'm saving money instead of having to order worms and pay shipping again. You know, so finding that sweet spot is another tip that will help you to save a little bit of money as you start to scale your operation. You know, those little things become important. Just like building my own racks. I was just looking into the Container Store. So if you guys don't know who Robbie's Reptiles is, he is a crested gecko breeder primarily, and he has some videos on his YouTube channel right now about the Container Store. Now, if you guys don't know what the Container Store is, you could look them up on Google, thecontainerstore.com. They have a lot of containers, and some of their containers are stackable. And if you don't need heat and you could just stack containers like crested gecko people can, you can get pretty good containers for holding geckos. And you could just stack them on top of each other, and you'll save a little bit of money compared to buying racking systems from like professional racking companies. However, I was doing the math, and the racks that I can build versus what it would cost me to buy containers from the Container Store, it's actually more worth it for me just to build the rack. I can do it for cheaper, and I could fit more in a certain given area. But if you don't have the capability of building a rack, like if you don't know how to build and you don't want to build, the Container Store is a great option for stacking containers. If you have like crested geckos, you know what I mean? And you could probably save a lot of money going to the Container Store versus buying professional racking systems, you know? Although I went to Sea Serpent's website recently, and their racking systems are actually pretty good price. I gotta say, but the main issue with Sea Serpents or any of these other companies is they can't custom build you with a rack size. So, for example, if I want this tub, I mean, maybe they can custom build it for you, but because it's not a specific layout, you're probably going to pay more money. If I want to build a rack around this tub, which I have like 1,000 of these tubs now, right, for babies, the Container Store would be not the Container Store. Sea Serpents would be much more expensive for them to custom build it for me and ship it to me than it would be for me to build it myself. So it just kind of depends on what you're able to do. But when I was looking at the Sea Serpents rack setups right now, they actually have really good pricing on rack setups. I want to see if I could become sponsored by Sea Serpents or VivTech or not VivTech. What is it? Vivarium Electronics, like these different companies that make racking systems and stuff that's good for leopard geckos. If I could get sponsored by them, I'll show you, but they're pretty good pricing if you can't build one yourself. But if you can build one yourself, you're going to save money. You're going to be able to also make racks whenever you want, because these companies that we're talking about right now, they're going to take 2, 3, 4, 5+ months to ship you a rack. So like if you need a rack this weekend, it's going to be really tough to find any company that can get you a rack by this weekend. But if you know how to build a rack, you could get it done this weekend in a couple of hours if you know how to do it, you know? I mean, it's usually a little bit more than a couple of hours, but you kind of get the idea of what I'm saying. So my cousin right now, who's also my business partner, he's actually building us, because I don't have time right now, and he really likes to do projects and stuff and help out. So he's building us a racking system that's going to fit this size tub perfectly. And once he gets the first model down, it'll be easy and faster every single time for him to replicate that. And I'm really excited for that because we have as you can over here, this whole wall is taken up by geckos, but this wall is empty. So as he's able to build those racking systems for us, we'll start to fill up our empty wall and have tubs like this in racking systems, you know? All right, now for now, I need to put this up on the shelf. See, for now, I'm just stacking them like this. And you always want to put your most valuable geckos on underneath, because on rare occasions, some big geckos can pop these lids off, or if it's a weak lid, which I always test for, if it's a weak lid, it might accidentally pop off with any gecko. But yeah, once you build your own rack, you won't have the concern that I'm talking about with the lids coming off. But for now, if you're stacking them like this, putting the most valuable animals underneath the top tub, the weight will hold it all down so that they can't pop out, you know? Effie, what are you doing, sweetie? My cat is exploring the room here. All right. Looks like we got more Black Knights here. These little humid hides for the geckos. As you can see, they're kind of running around in there. There's 2 Black Knights. What I do to save time is I take the sprayer and I just spray it into the dirt carefully. Now, if you see geckos, they might scream and freak out a little bit, but if you're careful to just spray in the dirt, now this humid hide is done. All I need to do is dump the old paper towel, put a new one in, and ready to rock and roll. So I've kind of figured out a really good way to like streamline cleaning these tubs. I also experimented with leopard geckos. Was making a getaway. I also experimented with leopard geckos not having humid hides and just getting a humidifier in the room and allowing for the humidifier to make the room between 40 to 60% humidity all day long. And that wasn't good enough. Like some geckos that were shedding during the low part of the humid day, they were still having shedding issues. And so I really prefer for every single gecko, especially babies, to have humid hides, because leopard gecko babies are super, super sensitive to shedding issues. And if they don't have a humid hide, they can easily lose fingers, toes, hands, tail tips, you know, to dry shed getting stuck on there, cutting off the blood circulation, and then killing that part of the animal's body because no blood flow is getting to it, you know. So I am a big, big promoter of humid hides if you live in a dry environment where your geckos are having problems shedding. In the Philippines, that's not an issue. If you ever watch like Indonesian or Filipino leopard gecko breeders on YouTube, none of them use humid hides. All they do is a little bit of sand in the bottom of a tub, and that's it. Then they drop some crickets in there, and that's it. They don't need a humid hide or nothing because they live in a humid hide, basically the tropical jungle, you know. Can't wait for these Black Knights to grow up, and we have some that are sizable to sell right now. I really want to make it my goal to sell animals around 20 to 25 grams. And I think I've had this discussion with you guys in the past, but animals at 20 to 25 grams, they're going to catch a better price tag. They're already going to be really well established and hardy animals, so you don't have to worry about, like, if a customer is not that experienced and, you know, maybe doesn't give them calcium for the first few weeks, or doesn't have the proper heating for them. The gecko can withstand a lot more improper care at 20 to 25 grams than they can at 10 to 15 grams. An animal at 10 to 12 grams or lower, if you give that animal improper care, it can very quickly dehydrate and die, get stuck shed and lose hands. You know what I mean? Like, it can much more easily have issues. So the animals are worth more at 20 to 25 grams because they're closer now to breeding size. They're also healthier and sturdier in general, and therefore you don't have to worry about as much customer issues and stuff like that. So I made it I brought some Black Knights with me to the show that were like right around 20 grams, and I think I sold one adult. I sold one that was around 20 grams. But now those ones that didn't sell at the show that were 20 grams, now they're like 25, 30 grams. And that's really the sweet spot for me because they become even more valuable at 30 grams or more because people want to breed them right away, right? And so what's better? What's closer to breeding, an animal at 20 grams or an animal at 30 grams? The answer is typically an animal at 30 grams. So people are going to be willing to pay more for an animal at 30 grams that they want to breed that's high quality, like a Black Knight, rather than an animal at 20 grams, We also have the show in Pomona, California coming up. So if you live in California or you're going to be at that show, we're going to be vending at that show. I think it's January 7th and 8th. But if you just look up Pomona Reptile Super Show, we will be there. And we'll probably have, unless I sell out of Black Knights before then, which I don't think I'm going to, but if I don't, I'll have Black Knights there at that show. See what questions I missed here. Sorry if we're chopping up on Wi-Fi internet a little bit. Hopefully it's not too bad. Oh, I like this one. Check this out. This one's nice and purpley. Nice and purpley gecko. Let's put these. What do you think about Murphy's pattern list? I loved Murphy's pattern list okay, here's the thing. This happens with everybody in different reptile hobbies. What stands out to people the most in the beginning is typically the animals that are very odd. For example, in leopard geckos, what stands out to people the most in the beginning is usually super snow, blizzard, Murphy's patternless, and albino, because those animals are completely different than what a normal animal looks like. Now, all of those that I just mentioned are very, very common, easy to produce, and overproduced in the hobby, so they have a very small price tag. Same thing with ball pythons. What's the #1 ball python that people vote looks the best, even against ball pythons that are like $20,000? You know what they'll pick? They'll pick a $200 blue-eyed Lucy, which is an all-white snake with blue eyes. Even though blue-eyed Lucies have a smaller price tag, they're easy to produce, they're oversaturated and overproduced in the marketplace, they're often the most beautiful animal to a beginner. But as you start to get more experienced in geckos or in snakes, you start to gravitate towards the animals that are more rare, harder to produce, take more time to produce. So there's a difference of preference that usually happens from people jumping in the hobby to people that are more experienced. For example, I loved Blizzard. When I first came into the hobby, I don't love it so much anymore. I'm just going to be honest. And so my opinion is the same about Murphy's pattern list. Is Murphy's pattern list is awesome. It's great. It looks amazing, but it's easy to make. It's overproduced in the hobby, and therefore to an experienced breeder, you don't necessarily experienced breeders don't necessarily look forward to making a Murphy's pattern list because it's been done a million times. They look forward to making things that are rare and hasn't been done a lot, you know. Sorry, I don't mean that to sound like snobby or anything. I'm trying to explain the different mindsets that people tend to go through in the reptile hobby. But a Murphy's pattern list is a beautiful animal. A blizzard is a beautiful animal. A snow, an albino, they're all beautiful in their own regards. It's just as you gain more experience, you're going to want to make stuff that is more rare, higher sought after, and less produced, you know. So I hope that makes sense. Now, if you watch my video on top 5 best beginner morphs for leopard geckos, I actually recommend the snow, the blizzard, the albino. I recommend that people start with those because number one, you're going to enjoy it the most. Number two, it's not very it's not priced so high to where somebody's going to feel the repercussions of that on their bank statement. You know what I mean? And then be regretting the purchase. And number three, they're great entry level educating morphs when jumping into leopard geckos. There's some morphs that are harder to recognize, harder to see, harder to identify, harder to make. Those don't make the best educators. They don't make the best teachers for people that are new coming into the hobby. What makes the best teachers for new people coming into the hobby are morphs that are easy to understand, easy to identify, easy to see, and therefore somebody can start to get used to how mutations work in reptiles and specifically leopard geckos before they jump into the more complex stuff, you know? So now I need to write the date that we're cleaning these tubs so I know when they need to be cleaned next. Geeky Gecko, great day, guys, to leopard geckos, and got hooked with this guy. Oh, the holy guild. Thank you, bro. Yeah, I don't know. I always look for like fun little slogans like that. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let's put that comment up for a second. I appreciate that. If you guys don't know what Holy Guild is talking about, at the end of all of our videos, I always say, have a Geeky Gecko great day. I might even make a shirt of it one day. But anyway, these are the shirts if you guys want. These are the new black tribal shirts. And you can see, I love tribal. Many of you guys didn't know this, but tribal is, it's just a design that my eye gravitates to. So this is our tribal style shirt for now. So are you selling Black Knights to get a solid black? The solid black ones are going to be very, very rare to come across. However, if you buy ones that are not solid black and breed them to each other, you can make your own solid black ones. You know what I mean? So yes, if you do want to buy Black Knights from us, we have Black Knights that are not solid black right now, but they're pretty good black, and they're already 20 to 30 grams, and you can follow up with me on Instagram or Facebook or text. You know, my number is on our website. You could email me off our website as well, or text me, and we can figure out what gecko is good for you, you know? Ooh, the pink baby. So I actually have the pink baby on my Instagram. And the reason it's so pink is because it's actually lacking a lot of pattern. Kind of like a pied animal, it lacks a lot of pattern. So you can see a lot of the I don't know this is just my theory. You could see a lot of the underlying like red, I guess. That's just caused from like flesh and tissue and blood and like that whole mixture of things, you know. even though I think blood is blue in the body, right? Until it comes out, then it's red. So anyway, the gecko has kind of like a pinkish hue to it. It's pretty neat. But it's on our Instagram. I do have it, and if you remind me, Norman, I can text you a picture of it. So 1 year under your belt, Bam Bam. Congratulations. Let's put that up for you. Yeah, Denise, I lost 7 out of 50 this past season. If you mean babies, thank you for sharing. There's a lot of people that don't want to share that kind of information, but I think it's really pertinent that breeders, especially the entry level breeders, know what they're up against. So they don't necessarily think they're doing something wrong, which you should always see if you are doing something wrong. But nature is nature. Babies are going to die. Babies are going to pass away. Babies are going to be born weak. So if we take that ratio, 7 out of 50, if somebody wants to divide that right now, 7 divided by 50, you'll see what percentage of babies that even the best breeders have issues with sometimes. And you could kind of, not be discouraged if you see that happen to you in your setup. Now, I always tell people, go through the checklist. Make sure that everything on your checklist is good, before you chalk it up to nature taking its course. But at the end of the day, nature is going to take its course. And if you have breeders that are telling you that they have zero issues in their operation or close to 0%, then they're either really, really fortunate or lucky, or they just are unaware or purposely trying to mislead you with the number that they're sharing to make them feel better about themselves or make them look better or whatever the case is. That stuff does happen, guys. I mean, but that's one thing that I like to really represent here with our platform, is being as open and transparent and honest as possible. So I appreciate you, Denise, sharing that information. So yeah, we're gonna get Denise on that live stream. Yeah, Robbie, if Robbie's Reptiles, if you missed it, he just released another video today where he ordered over 100 crested geckos. The dude's really doing it. Like, the dude is really making a full business out of it, and it's great to see. You know what I mean? So yeah, Animal Plastics is really good. Sea Serpents is really good. They're all really good companies. I would like to represent any of them. I don't have a preference for any of them because I hold all my own stuff. But if any of them did want to partner with me, I'd rep them for sure. Because I know a lot of people that do use their products, and it's really good. Especially if you have the money and you don't have the know-how to build your own racks, or you don't want to take the time to learn, you got to get them from somewhere, right? And these companies are really, really good at what they do. However, supply chain issues right now, it's going to set you back on average 2 to 3 months, sometimes maybe longer, depending on what rack you're getting, like Freedom Breeder and ARS and different racks that are meant for like ball pythons or breeding rats. Those might take a little bit longer. So what's your opinion on bioactive enclosures for leopard geckos? I love it. I think if you can do a bioactive for leopard geckos, that's great. It's going to be hard to see right here, but you can see these little beetles crawling. Believe it or not, mealworms actually make really, really good cleanup crew. So you could buy isopods for high rates, or you could just dump a bunch of mealworms into the soil. They'll turn into beetles, and those beetles will become the decomposition crew. Those are Coleonyx geckos up there. So those are Western banded geckos, which is a cousin of the leopard gecko. But if I was to set up a leopard gecko in a bioactive environment, that's how I would do it right there. I would dump a bunch of mealworms into the substrate, which is going to be like a soil, sand, peat moss substrate mixture like we have for our starter kits now. Dump a bunch of mealworms in there, like 50 or so. They'll turn into beetles. They'll create their own population in there, and they'll be the bioactive crew that helps break down waste and other things in the leopard gecko's tank. But I love Bioactive. I think Bioactive is definitely becoming more popular as more YouTubers share how to make bioactive tubs and all that kind of stuff, you know. So, Rob, the Geeky Gecko tub kits are working great. Thanks, Frank. Oh, yeah. I can't believe I can't remember this, but I sent Rob one. Are you out here locally? Because shipped I've only shipped two right now. So that means I'm sorry, my brain is like so dead from the last couple of days. But did you pick one up from us at the show? Um, if so, I'm glad that the tub is working out really good for you. Or you might have been one of the people that I met after the show, because after I started making the video and talking about the starter kits, I had a bunch of people that wanted to meet up locally for them. And then just recently, I shipped my first two starter kits. Each kit cost about $70 to ship. It's pretty crazy. And that's even with or without the dirt. The weight didn't matter at that point. So it's the size. The size is going to be pretty hefty to ship. So I don't know if people are going to want it, but let's say I'm selling the kit for $75, the shipping is going to be $70 for me to ship that to you. If you're like clear across the country where this person was, if you're close to me, it'll probably be only like $30 to $40 to ship, but that's still a decent amount of cost. But if it's worth it to you, I can absolutely make them. So Reef and Reptile Automation is starting to do a lot of reptile live streams. And I think, oh no, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we met them at the show. I'm sorry. You have a name that's similar to somebody else that I was thinking of. But they are from our neck of the woods here, and it's really good to see them. They have a pretty cool channel. They did an interview with us at the Phoenix Reptile Expo. So if you want to check out that interview or Reef and Reptiles that they have going on, please go check out their channel right now. You'll find some really cool videos there. So yeah, Bam Bam, if you go to the Cali show, I hope to see you there. My dad was actually just telling me right now, we got to be really careful because crime in California is close to the Los Angeles area. And I think he was saying the San Diego or another area. Crime is really, really ramping up right now because of the laws and everything, where their prison system is really overcrowded. So they're not really even trying people, or there's really no repercussions for what they consider like petty crime, you know, like stuff that's under $1,000 or even more than $1,000 right now. I don't know. He just told me it's really tough over there right now. And it's getting so bad to where the amount of cars that were getting broken into, you know, having their windows smashed, it's getting so bad now where people are just rolling down their windows at night to kind of signify to the criminals that, hey, there's nothing in my car, so please don't break my windows. That's bad. When you got to do that, that's bad. Now we're going to be about an hour away from that locations, but still, you know, that's still pretty close. So definitely something to kind of be careful about over there. But if you're heading in that area, you know. Who's the next newer breeder you'd like to have on your live? I'm not sure. I might dedicate like a certain day or a certain week to doing like new breeder on the block. I don't know if you guys follow MJ from Trap Talk. He has a live stream where he interviews really, really like experienced reptile keepers and breeders in the hobby. But then he also has this segment that he does where it's called New Breeder on the Block. And so I might incorporate that as well. This has just been a really busy month with Christmas season and us prepping for the show and all that kind of stuff. But it could be you, it could be JJC Reptiles. There's a few people. Oh, Robbie's Reptiles, what's going on, man? I was just literally just talking about your channel. If you're still here, I was just talking about your channel not too long ago. How I was talking about the the caging that you use and how innovative and creative you were with that, and how people can go to your YouTube channel to kind of learn about that. But also your newest video where you show getting over 100 geckos, and things are just really, really ramping up where you're at, and the business is really taking off. So, so yeah, Robbie's Reptiles, definitely really, really cool. guy and channel to check out. So, oh, 7 out of 50 black nights. Oh, that were really, really dark. Is that what you're talking about, Denise? 7 out of 50 black nights. So that's a yeah, that's a good odd as well. You know what I mean? Um, for sure, because I know Echo Geckos also talks about the percentage of really, really dark black nights that he produces, but that's good though. Yeah, if you got, I mean, 50 black nights, congratulations. That's a, you know, high amount of black nights, which is great. And if you get 7 of them that are like pitch black, that's also great. But that kind of lets you know, for the conversation that we were talking about earlier, if you're looking for like a pitch black gecko, they're really, really rare. Um, it's a very small group of people that are producing 50 or more black nights a year. And if only 7 of those 50 are going to be really, really dark, you could understand why they carry such a high price tag, or why a lot of people don't even sell them to begin with. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm thinking if I want to sell my Coleonyxes, Denise, I'm not sure. I know Geckos Etc. also has a large collection of Coleonyxes, and he's up there oh, sorry, you're not in California, but Geckos Etc. has a large collection of Coleonyxes, and then I have maybe 15 or so, like 7 males and 7 females that are captive born that I bred myself. Um, um, and I just don't know. I've just been holding on to them to see if I want to keep them or not. You know what I mean? All right, we're gonna get more geckos out here. Are the Phoenix worth coming out for? Well, I mean, the Phoenix show is Arizona's largest show. I don't know what to compare it to because it's the only big show that I've been to. When I go to the Reptile Super Show in California, I'll be able to give you a comparison. Um, and then I'll also probably be going to the Las Vegas shows, but when I go to a Phoenix show, they're pretty big. Like, there's a lot of breeders there. There's a lot of really well-known breeders there. And yeah, I think there's a lot of diversity of animals. So it depends what you're looking for, right? If you're looking for like super, super high-end crested geckos or super, super high-end ball pythons, we don't have like Justin Cabell coming out, you know what I mean, to the Arizona shows. Or we don't have like Morph Menagerie coming out, which is like a top crested gecko breeder. We may one day. So you're not really going to see those really, really popular, like highest end breeders at the Arizona show, but you're going to see a bunch of breeders that have good animals. You're also going to see a wide diversity of animals. And I mean, it's big enough. It's a big enough show to where Dave Kaufman and a lot of the content creators, they come to the show. I have not seen them the last 2 years, but I think that's just been logistics of COVID happening and all that kind of stuff. But my very first reptile show here in Arizona, the Arizona, Phoenix Reptile Expo, that's where I met Dave in person for the first time. So I do think that the Arizona show has great potential to be a place where like the biggest names in the industry flock to sell. But for now, you're just going to run into more like mid to high end breeders that might not be like as known, but they do have really high quality animals. So it just kind of depends what you're looking for. If you're looking to see the top content creators in their niches, you're probably not going to see too much of that there. It's more just like breeders that have good animals. But maybe one day you will. Now, the California show, I think we're really going to see. Oh, and another thing to show that Arizona is also a popular show is Redline Shipping is doing everything that they can right now to get their name out there, and they're picking the very biggest shows around the country, and they're becoming sponsors at those shows. This year is the first year that I've ever seen a shipping sponsor. That just the first year that I've ever seen a shipping sponsor at the Phoenix Reptile Expo, and guess who it was? It was Redline. So that tells you that Redline finds it valuable to spend however much money they spent or whatever agreement they have or time and resources they have to come out to the Phoenix Reptile Expo and advertise their services there because they believe the expo is worthy of that. You know what I mean? So, oh, Denise says 7 Black Knights passed out of 50. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's um, good information for people to have, especially people who are breeding Black Knights. I think my first year breeding Black Knights, I think I lost 4 or 5 Black Knights out of, I want to say, like 30. So similar to what Denise is experiencing, you know. And this year, I don't know how many Black Knights we produced this year, but I can tell you we've probably lost. This year's not as much, I don't think, but we've probably lost at least like 3, at least 3 or 4 Black Knight babies this year. But we, I have a couple other babies that are still small, and I don't know if they make it long term. I'm taking good care of them. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens with those. But I'm collecting beetles. So anytime the worms turn into beetles in your cage, you can collect them and start yourself a little breeding colony if you want, you know, or sell them or whatever you want to do. So that is a benefit of changing out food once a week. You come back and a lot of them are going to be turned into beetles and pupa, you know. Yeah, see, and Reef and Reptiles was there at the show. They they were actually walking around the show. I never really even got a chance to walk around the show, except for 3 years ago when I was there as my first show. So it's also hard for me to judge how good a show is because it's vending. But I can tell you this, the show is amazing for us vending. It was super fun. We were really crowded. We got to, from the start of the show to the end of the show, it's almost like you don't get any breaks, you know? Um, and especially on Saturday. So if I was to judge the show based off of my experience as a vendor, just as a vendor, not as an attender, I would say it was amazing. And then you have Reef and Reptiles who stopped by our booth and they did an interview with us. They were attending and they said it was amazing. So, oh, they got to meet my mom. Yeah, my mom sells plants at the shows too. So, Henry Hicks, how's it going, our gecko buddy? But yeah, it was really, really fun to meet you guys, Reef and Reptiles. Um, and really fun to do the interview with you guys. It's always fun to go to a show and just talk with people who are as excited about reptiles as you are, you know. I'm not saying I'm going to do this, but sometimes I wish I just worked with leopard geckos. You know what I mean? So right now, my time is spent between leopard geckos, crested geckos, ball pythons, rats, dubia roaches. Like my time is split between all these different things that I need to do. besides social media and sales and customers, just as far as species that I keep. Sometimes I think to myself, what if I just sold everything and just dedicated all time and money and resources and space to leopard geckos? Like, that's how much I love leopard geckos. But it might be a lot. I would have more space for leopard geckos. Um, I would be working with the species that I'm most passionate about. So like I love ball pythons, don't get me wrong. I love breeding ball pythons because they're really cool. But when I was cleaning the ball pythons today, I don't get as much joy pulling tubs and cleaning ball python tubs as I do pulling leopard gecko tubs and cleaning leopard gecko tubs. Like whenever I clean leopard gecko tubs, I'm always studying the animal. What does its pattern look like? What does its color look like? Is it a good time to take pictures of this animal right now? How's its health? How's its weight? I'm really excited to look into all those details when I'm cleaning the leopard geckos. But the ball pythons, I don't enjoy that as much, So am I diversifying my streams of revenue? Yes. But also, if you breed ball pythons, you either need a lot of money to buy rats and have a rat supplier, you know what I mean? Or breed your own rats. Or breed your own rats. And that's a lot of work. Like operating a rat shed and having a rat operation is a whole nother grind in of itself. And although I love rats because they come in lots of different colors and they're cute and they're like kind of fun in certain ways to deal with, at the end of the day, I would rather not be breeding rats. But I have to because of the ball pythons. So sometimes I think to myself, how nice would life be if I wasn't breeding rats and I wasn't breeding ball pythons and I was just doing leopard geckos? So I'm not saying it will happen, but one day you might see me sell out and just focus on leopard geckos. But I don't know. That's a big ask. Whoa, my sprayer's going crazy here. It's been acting up lately, getting stuck and all that kind of stuff. And I need to buy another one. All right. So all of these older geckos now, I'm converting them to newspaper because they will scratch the paper towel too much. You know what I mean? Once they get older, like once they're like this size or even slightly smaller than this, they'll all get converted to newspaper instead of paper towel. And I took out like 200 humid hides to experiment, and now I'm having to put all the humid hides back. And maybe another reason that I enjoy the leopard geckos more is because, well, not only because I love the species more, but my process for cleaning, breeding, feeding, housing leopard geckos is so streamlined. Like it's the most efficient that it could be. But when I go into the ball python room, because I don't have as many ball pythons, I feel like the operation is not as efficient as it could be. And I feel like not that it's a waste of time, but anything that's not operating efficiently, using your time the best, is always going to feel a little bit sluggish. It's always going to feel a little bit off, And so that's another reason that I don't probably enjoy the ball pythons as much. I enjoy the streamline of how I have the leopard gecko set up, how I'm moving through tubs and how I do my labeling and all that stuff. Like, I don't know, I just enjoy it a lot, So I don't know. The thought crossed my mind today that said, do I? Do I want to sell all of my ball pythons and turn that room into another leopard gecko room or into a crested gecko room? I don't know. That's another thing. Crested geckos right now are really, really profitable. Um, if you can market them and if you can streamline your operation to be efficient and you invest in good animals, they're really, really profitable. Much more profitable than leopard geckos. Maybe, I don't know. Let me tell you my thought process on this real quick. So, okay, undoubtedly the highest end crested geckos are selling for way more money, like 10 times more money than the highest end leopard geckos. And by highest end crested gecko, I mean like the Axanthics and the Axanthic lily whites and the Frappuccinos and the Cappuccino lily whites, all of those that are selling for like $10,000 to $20,000. That's like 10 times more profitable than the most expensive leopard geckos right now. But leopard geckos have a little trick up their sleeve. The trick up the leopard gecko's sleeve is how quickly they can reproduce. For example, you could technically get a female leopard gecko into breeding by her 5th or 6th month of age. Whereas with crested geckos, you need to grow up those crested geckos until they're about 1.5 to 3 years old. So it takes 3 times as much time to get a breeding animal as it does in leopard geckos. So the question is, if you have one leopard gecko female that can produce 3 times as many offspring by the time the crested gecko female is breeding, and you can sell those leopard geckos, it could be argued that you might make more money with the leopard geckos. Maybe. I don't know. It's just a thought process that I have going on right now. But anyway, undoubtedly, the highest end crested geckos are selling for way more than the highest end leopard geckos right now. But I enjoy leopard geckos way more. So if, let's say hypothetically, I was to get rid of all the ball pythons. Let's say I don't want to do ball pythons anymore because they take too much space. I have to breed rats. I have to work with rats and touch rats and feed rats, and I don't want to do any of that anymore. Let's say I get rid of the ball pythons. The question is, do I turn the ball python room into a crested gecko room that is more, where the species is selling for more money right now than geckos, but I'm new to crested geckos. Well, not new, but I'm not one of the most well-known people in crested geckos. So I might not be able to sell even the highest end stuff. I might be able to sell super, super easily. So it might not be that profitable. Or do I turn it into a leopard gecko room where I can produce 3 times as many animals? And because I'm a leopard gecko breeder and this is my niche and this is what I'm known for, I can sell those animals and I'll arguably be more profitable just doing leopard geckos. Here's the answer. Work with what you're passionate about. If you're not passionate about it, then I would suggest not working with it. And I have crested geckos. I like crested geckos. I have gargoyle geckos. I like gargoyle geckos. But I don't know. There's just something in me that loves leopard geckos. And it's almost as if nothing else can beat leopard geckos for me. And so the question to me is, why spend any of my time doing things that I'm just okay with when I can spend all my time doing a species, leopard geckos, that I am just like the most excited about? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So these are not, you guys are kind of my therapist for the afternoon. I'm just kind of spewing off some stuff that's on my mind. Because whenever you have a business, Time is very important. And every second that you spend doing something that you're not as passionate about is a second that you could be spending doing something that you're more passionate about. And if money is not an issue, like the reason that we invested in ball pythons is okay, ball pythons are fun. Don't get me wrong. They have lots of colors, lots of mutations, infinite amount of combinations you can make. They're fun. But they have their struggles too. As far as selling them, they don't fly off the shelves, which means that you need to house them, you need to feed them, you need to take care of them. And I don't enjoy taking care of ball pythons as much as I enjoy taking care of leopard geckos. And I'm very good at taking care of leopard geckos too. Like I could take care of 1,000 leopard geckos here by myself. You know what I mean? Probably even more. And this is what I'm saying. Probably even more if I didn't have the leopard, if I didn't have the crested geckos, the rats, and the ball pythons, I could probably double my leopard gecko operation right now, if not more, triple it, you know? So I don't know. Thoughts to think through. And arguably, Black Knights are so desired. If I could just produce enough Black Knights just to sell anywhere between $500 to $1,500, that could be a very profitable business for me, you know? But I'm limited by the amount of time that I have to invest. So if I got rid of all my ball pythons, I would have more space and time to invest in just breeding Black Knights or breeding tangerines and just the common geckos that people are really, really passionate about in the masses, you know? Now, I'm already doing that right now, don't get me wrong. But if I get rid of the ball pythons, it would allow me to do that even more, you know? So just things to think about. I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point now. I love leopard geckos though. This one's a little bit skinny, but we're gonna get them fed right now. I kind of I missed a week. I missed a week of cleaning because of everything I got. See, this is what I mean. Because of everything I got going on, I missed a week of cleaning. So the geckos are just slightly less fed right now than they would normally be. But if I didn't have ball pythons, that wouldn't be happening, you know. The other thing that I'm doing now too is I'm starting to hire help. You know what I mean? And so that's helping me get stay more on track with things. I hired some help to help with the rat operation, which is my least favorite part of the business. And then, you know, we have Brooke to help with the geckos, but I'm also looking into a couple other people to possibly help with the geckos right now. As long as I can make sales, as long as I cover the expenses of paying for this help, then I'm okay with it, you know? And it will just help me do some of the other things that I need to do, like the social media side of things and all that stuff, you know. Need to grab some water. So we're meeting at 7:45. It's only 2 minutes on the street, so we could leave it like long as I think if we get there, we sit down at the table at least. Anyway, I say all of that to basically conclude on one point. I love leopard geckos, and I might just want to do leopard geckos. Yeah, thank you, Bam Bam. The visual puzzles, yeah, those are really, really cool. And maybe right now, ball pythons are hurting me a little bit because I'm holding everything back. So like all of these nice ball pythons that I'm making right now, or like the puzzles that I'm making and stuff, I'm just planning on holding them back so that I can use them to be breeders in the future. So like the ball python operation is a huge hit to our bottom line every month, and I'm really not making any money from the ball pythons. I'm just spending money. I'd probably say on average the ball pythons is costing me about $400 to $500 a month to feed the rats and all that kind of stuff. Now I am selling some rats to kind of bridge those expenses, but there was a time there where I wasn't selling any rats, and if I don't sell any rats, I'm looking at like $400 to $500 a month of expenses, and let's just say I'm covering half of that right now. Let's just say hypothetically I'm spending $300 a month taking extra expenses for the ball pythons. That means that every year, that's $3,000 that I could have been putting towards like geckos or something. But the opposite end of that is the animals I'm holding onto, and the animals that I'm not selling are worth really good money. So that's the opposite end, is if I ever decide to sell, they're worth good money, and I'm making them, so they're worth money. Let's see. Reef and reptiles, you mentioned the mealworms, beetles as bioactive. Won't the animals eat them? So, fun fact, most lizards will not eat beetles because beetles are associated with stinkiness. A lot of beetles release pheromones and stuff like that don't taste good to the reptiles, so they don't eat them. The reason I laugh is because sailfin dragons will eat beetles. They're the only reptile that I've ever seen that actually will eat a beetle. And the reason that's funny to me is because sailfin dragons are Filipino and Indonesian, which is the same as what my mom is. And in Filipino culture, they'll eat anything. They'll eat fish eggs. They'll eat seaweed. They'll eat fish heads. Like, these are delicacies for Filipinos and Indonesians, right? So the reason I laugh that the only lizard that I've ever seen eat beetles is a Filipino Indonesian lizard, I laugh because that's relatable to me as far as the human side of things, being related to Filipinos and all that kind of stuff. Now, also on the ball python, Henry Hicks says ball pythons are cool, but the geckos seem to change some way every day. On the ball python note, I've always been much more of a lizard guy. So chime into the chat right now. I would love to see how many of you are lizard people, lizard guys and gals, or snake guys and gals. There's always one way that somebody leans. Say you could only keep one type of reptile. Would it be a lizard or would it be a snake? Mine would be a lizard, undoubtedly, 100%. I love goannas. I love monitor lizards. I love tegus. And therefore, to me, leopard geckos are like little baby dinosaurs. You know what I mean? They're like little Tyrannosaurus rexes. I love the fact that they're more hunted. They're more of a hunter than like a. I love crested geckos. Don't get me wrong, but I love the fact that leopard geckos are a little bit more hunter-like. You know what I mean? And they just have a little bit more of a dinosaur look than the crested geckos do. So I don't know if that's inwardly my number one reason for loving them the most, but as far back as I can remember, I've always gravitated to leopard geckos more than any other gecko species. And I think to me it's because they're the closest that represents to like a mini dinosaur as far as like the geckos are concerned. Now there's other cool lizard species that are kind of dinosaur-like, but leopard geckos also come in a lot of different colors. So that's another benefit of theirs. They have the most mutations in the lizard world compared to like crested geckos and bearded dragons. They have the most like known mutations, you know what I mean? And they're a manageable size. So I think for all of those reasons, I've just gravitated to them. But if I wasn't keeping leopard geckos, I would 100% be more passionate about a different lizard species, either bearded dragons, crested geckos, Leachianus geckos, um, or specifically monitors. And this might be something that I get more into over time. I might get into the pygmy monitors. So the Aki monitors. There's what's the name of them? If any of you guys know, it's like Varanus kingi or something like that. They actually have an albino version of that. But I love small monitor species because they're like little dinosaurs, you know. So like green tree monitors, black tree monitors, blue tree monitors, peach throat monitors, mangroves are okay. Those are a little bit on the bigger side. But by pygmy monitors, I mean like the Kimberly Rock monitors, the Aki monitors, the King Eye monitor, whatever that is called. If one of you guys know, I really, really love monitors, goannas. You know what I mean? So as I get deeper into my reptile career, so to speak, I may start to incorporate more monitors as time goes on, but I'm much more of a lizard guy than I am of a snake guy, you know? Why is that? I don't know. I think the only reason lizards remind me more of dinosaurs than snakes do. You know what I mean? Even though snakes are awesome and cool in their own way. And I guess the word dinosaur actually means terrible lizard, even though dinosaurs technically aren't lizards. Like lizard is a separate category that kind of derived out of whatever, you know, that time period or whatever. But they're the closest that look and kind of act like dinosaurs as far as we can tell. You know what I mean? Of course, there's always the bird argument, but let's be real. A bird nowadays is not okay. So a dinosaur is kind of like in between a bird and a lizard, right? Like dinosaurs have the ability, you know, they're starting to discover now that some dinosaurs have like hollow bones, like similar to birds do and stuff like that. But birds don't have like teeth, like lizards have teeth, right? And the musculature of a lizard is much closer to the musculature of a dinosaur than like the musculature of a bird is to a dinosaur, you know. So anyway, the argument can be presented both ways. More or less, a dinosaur is actually something like in between a lizard and a bird. But nowadays, looks wise, I think lizards are the closest that we can get looks wise to having little baby dinosaurs. You know what I mean? So maybe I bet you that's one reason that I've always gravitated to lizards more is because of my love for dinosaurs. But my first reptile was a leopard gecko. And when I went to the store and picked out the leopard gecko, I remember my cousin picked out an African fat-tailed gecko, and I picked out a leopard gecko. I've always gravitated to leopard geckos more than any other type of gecko. Because I remember we were thinking about it at the store, and we were trying to decide, and whichever gecko I didn't take, he was going to take. And I chose the leopard gecko over the fat-tailed gecko, and I have no regrets of that. Like I really didn't want the fat-tailed gecko for whatever reason. I just really loved the leopard gecko. And this was back in, oh gosh, when was this? This is back in Denise's day. This would have been 1990s or something like that, you know? There was this pet store called Animals and Things, and it was like Disneyland to me. Like literally every weekend, I would ask my dad to take me to Animals and Things just so I could look at. I mean, they had all kinds of animals there that I enjoyed looking at, but the reptiles was always my favorite. So much so that even at like the age of 13, I bought my very first big goanna, you know? My dad helped me build like an 8-foot cage in our basement for this one lizard, which is called an Argus monitor. And at Animals and Things, they had an adult Argus monitor that somebody surrendered there. It was 4 feet long. It was an adult Argus monitor. And my dad helped me build a cage for it in the basement. And that became my first big goanna species, you know? But I loved going to Animals and Things and checking. They had cool fish. I always enjoyed the fish. Let's see, I'm going to come back to this in a second, but if you guys can guess, well, I want to see if you guys can guess what my favorite saltwater fish was that I would look at every single time I went to Animals and Things. If you want to have a little fun and drop it in the comments, let me know. I will wait. I won't say it. Remind me at the end of the stream if I forget. But there's one type of saltwater fish that I always enjoyed looking at the most when I went to the aquarium side of this store. And I would like to see if you guys can guess what that is. So satisfying watching the leopard geckos drink, you know, when you put that fresh water in there for them. So I'm thinking of dropping ball pythons. It's a lot of money and just not a fan of hunger strikes. Yeah, I mean, I really hate the attitudes of ball pythons. As soon as you open their tub, they're striking. So you have to be really careful, you know, because they think you're bringing in food. They need live food for the most part, which means you need to deal with rats and breeding rats. And yeah, corn snakes are really cool. The thing with colubrids that I don't like is them pooing and peeing on you and musking on you. If I could get over that, I would already be into hognoses. Like I really like hognoses, but they're tough to feed as babies, and they have the ability to pee and poo on you. So I don't know. A black night room. Rob thinks that I should have a black night room. That would be sick. How crazy would that be? Come over the house. I just got a whole room dedicated to black nights. That's kind of what I want to do for shows, though. I want to have a whole section dedicated to black geckos, another section dedicated to orange geckos, and then a third section dedicated to like kind of white geckos. You know what I mean? So in the white gecko section would be like blizzard, snow, fasciolatus, anything within that category. In the orange section, would be like clown, inferno, mandarin, and then obviously in the dark section would be black knight and any other melanistic stuff I got going on. But that's the level of like it just sounds really fun to be able to do that. So when someone's walking by your booth, all they see is like a row of black or orange or something like that. Yvette, I love all my reptiles, but I sold my bearded dragons and skinks to make room for more leopard geckos. I just love their personalities. That's another thing too. I was selling leopard geckos over crested geckos to some of the people that came to our table. Now, crested geckos do this as well, but not as much as leopard geckos. When you touch leopard geckos on the tip of their mouth, they give you a lick. Leopard geckos have eyelids, so they look cuter than a crested gecko in a way, because anything with eyelids is going to have the ability to close its eyes and be more relatable to another human being that can close its eyes. And so I don't know if that's the overwhelming vote, but I would say most people that I know, which is not saying a lot because I know mainly leopard gecko people, but most people that I know find leopard geckos to be cuter than crested geckos. And two of the reasons that I think is, one, because of the eyes, and two, their personalities. Like you were saying, they're a little bit more engaging with you than a crested gecko is. A crested gecko is always trying to hop away, right? But a leopard gecko will like actually explore you, and as they explore you, they'll be licking you. Like they'll be licking your arm, licking your chest, licking your finger, like, you know, and it's really cute to see that, you know what I mean? So Thank you, underrated short. Appreciate that. My gecko house is my Zen place. There you go. Here's a nice little white and yellow partial bold stripe. This is part of our pinstripe project. So I started selecting geckos a couple years ago that have more of the like pencil mark bold stripes, you know, and I wanted to create a whole project out of it that I actually called the pinstripe project. And I still have a bunch of pinstripe animals. I'm not as passionate about it right now, but if I was to sell my ball pythons and have extra space, maybe I would be more passionate about it. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'm still holding on to a bunch of my pinstripe leopard geckos because if that project ever takes off to be something that I really want to focus on or kind of be known for, it's kind of fun to me to get like thin bold striped lines on a gecko and kind of work with that. I also really like the thick bold stripe markings, obviously. So I'll always have that. But the pinstripe is like a separate project that I was pretty passionate about when I more seriously got back into leopard geckos a little while ago. Here's a little regen tail. I've never had a regen tail drop off, but if you look at our Instagram feed right now, you'll see that I had a black meat that dropped its tail and then re-dropped its generated tail. I've never had that happen before, but it can happen. So good to know. I'm probably so behind. Yeah, it always goes back to what you're most passionate about, right? Zach Sumter, I'll take over for you. Yeah, Pied is life. That was my first thought too, Zach. You know, Zach's so funny. If you guys, okay, I love Zach, my boy out here. But when I first met Zach, I remember like one of the first encounters with him. He didn't quite say it in this way, but he was like, "I'll be watching you, Frank. If you ever drop out of ball pythons, I'll buy up the stuff that I want from you." And he was like, you know, because there are tons of people that get into ball pythons and then get out. And when they get out, they just want to be done with it. They're so fed up with all the time and money and everything that they've thrown into it that they're willing to take like a third or a fifth of the cost of what they bought everything at. They're willing to just sell it for really, really cheap. So Zach's so funny. He was like totally honest with me when he first met me. He was like, Frank, if you ever are thinking about getting out of ball pythons, he's like, let me know. He's like, I'm not saying you're going to, but there's a high likelihood of people that get into ball pythons that also get out. And he was like, I'm just saying, if you get out, let me know first. So anyway, that thought was on my mind today as I was cleaning ball pythons. I was thinking of that conversation with Zach. But yeah, we'll see. I might just be having one of those days. I mean, because there's always, like, I always feel like I wish I accomplished more at the end of the day. And I don't think that's actually going to be cured by selling out of ball pythons, you know? Like, right now, I have this fantasy in my mind that's like, oh, if I sell out of ball pythons, I'll be caught up with everything I want to do. And at the end of the day, I won't have to feel like there's more that I want to do. But I'm already talking about replacing the ball pythons with more geckos, right? So I'm really not getting caught up. I'm adding more workload to myself. And although I can manage more leopard geckos efficiently, I'm still adding more work, and I'm probably going to add enough to the point where I'm not caught up. So I'm still going to bed with things on my mind of things that I want to accomplish or things that I didn't get to do that day, you know? So it really wouldn't solve my problem, but for a second, it feels good to fantasize about it, right? Fantasize that it would solve your problem. All right, check this out, guys. I tried to tell you. I tried to tell everybody. Look how nice the the Black Knight Afghanicus project is going. These are just generation ones. Very, very dark. Very, very dark for generation one. And I really think that generation two is going to offer. Okay, so here's my theory. My theory is that if generation one Afghanicuses are darker than your average generation one any other mutation Black Knight cross, then in theory generation 2 and 3 Afghanicus Black Knights should consistently produce higher amounts of darker animals than normal outcrosses would or other lines of Black Knight would. That's the theory. I'm going to need a year or two to that winds up, proving out true or whatever, but that's the theory. My mom went live yesterday with me on my Instagram, and we talked about geckos and what I'm passionate about. That's really fun. Yeah, thank you, Denise. Do what brings you joy. At the moment, I realize what truly working with leopard geckos. You've answered your own question. No way, Vince Gill. What's going on, man? I went to school with this dude. College, GCU, a couple of years ago. Yeah, he knows my wife and everything. So we're doing good, Vince. We just got a house full of reptiles now. That's really cool, Vince. I gotta talk to you more off stream. I actually just saw Sam. So you guys have no idea who Vince or Sam is, but I was in Grand Canyon University, the college we went to. We were all in the pep band together. So I played the baritone, and Sam and Vince played the tuba. And so, you get to know each other really well, especially since the tuba section is always really close a lot of times to the baritone section, since they're both like lower sounding instruments and whatnot. Anyway, Sam was a mutual friend of ours, and I just saw Sam recently, Vince, and that was pretty cool to see him. Sam was one of my groomsmen too at my wedding with Whitney. I don't know if you knew that, but so what are the morphs of ball pythons? Oh man, Rob, it would take you hundreds of hours to research all the morphs of ball pythons, but just know that ball pythons, by far, by 100 times, 1,000 times, carry more genetic opportunity than any other reptile that exists in our known creation. And that's one of the reasons why ball pythons are so popular. Another reason why they're so popular is because people think that they can get rich off them. They see ball pythons selling for $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, and they think to themselves, "Oh, I could jump in and get rich." But what really happens is the people that are getting rich, they're getting rich off of the people that don't make it. You know what I mean? So you got, let's just say there's 10 people that jump in and spend $1 million on ball pythons. Where are they getting their ball pythons from? Getting their ball pythons from the best breeders in the hobby, which have stuck it out and not given up and made a name for themselves and work with the best, most valuable animals in the hobby. So they have these 10 people coming to them. Out of those 10, I would say 9 of those people are going to fail. And only one of those people are going to go to the top and make it as well. And maybe not be all the way at the top, but they'll also create a name for themselves and a business for themselves. So the people at the top are making all the money from the people that are jumping in, spending millions of dollars thinking or hoping or trying to become the man at the top. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's the world of business. You gotta lick your wounds. If you can't do it, you gotta lick your wounds and move on. But the fact of the matter is, the people at the top, they're making money from all these people that think that they can or that they want to try to get rich off of ball pythons. The key is not giving up. That's the key, you know? as I talk about giving up, right? But I'm not giving up reptiles. I'm giving up, if I give up ball pythons, I'm doing it so that I could be more profitable, not more profitable necessarily, but I would have more time, money, and resources to spend in the area of the business that I'm already making money at, that I'm known for, that I'm more passionate about, you know? So, but that's the thing. I mean, we spent, you know, if I was to get out right now, if I was, then I've already spent that money, right? I've already spent that money with the bigger breeders in the hobby that I invested in, that we invested in over here to try to make a name for ourselves, you know? Um, Now, the thing is, I was smart about it. So the value that I could get out of the operation that I have here should be more than the value that we spent buying in if I take my time selling each animal individually. But if I just want to jump out, like a lot of people do, if I just want to sell everything off really quickly and get out super fast, that's where I would lose money, because if you want to sell quick in this game, you need to sell cheap, right? Unless you have things that are really, really desirable by people, which we kind of do. I mean, that was one of my reasons for investing in the puzzle project, is that it's less, it's more rare of a project, so there's less competition. So like if I wanted to put up my animals for sale right now, there's a good chance that they would sell within reasonable time frame, because there's not a lot of competition out there right now. Um, but the longer I hold on to them, the more competition there's going to be. But the more that competition there is, the more people get into it and the more people buy into it as a pyramid scheme. And it sort of keeps that momentum going, you know? So anyway, to make a long story short, if I was to get out today and I was like, I'm done, I want to sell everything to Zach, I'd have to sacrifice. I wouldn't make all my money back. But if I tell myself, you know what, I'm going to take my time and sell everything for the proper cost, I don't care if it takes me a year or 2 years to get my money back, I would actually make a profit off of what we have here, because we've already produced babies that are valuable and stuff like that. I would make a profit off of my initial investment, but it would take me 2 years to do it, right? It would take me time. And there's always that conversation of time, money, value. Is this time worth the money you're going to be getting out of it? Let's say I make a profit of $20,000, right? Let's just say, hold on. This is a great example. Let's say I make a profit of $20,000, but it takes me 2 years to do it. The question I got to ask myself is, can I make more than $20,000 profit if I was to sell everything today and replace that room with leopard geckos for 2 years of selling leopard geckos? Could I make $40,000, $50,000 after 2 years of selling leopard geckos if I replace my snakes with leopard geckos? So that's the question of what is worth it. What amount of time is worth the amount of money that you're getting out of that? You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. But and by the way, I would actually have to make more than $20,000, because if, let's just say hypothetically, my collection is worth $50,000. If I sold it to somebody for $30,000, if I sold it for half basically of what it's worth, I still need to make that additional amount up, plus whatever the profits I would have made out of selling them for 2 years. So if I was to make 20,000 profit, like let's say I was to sell everything for $70,000 2 years from now after parting it all out, that's a $20,000 profit over what I'm saying the initial value is worth right now. So that's $20,000 2 years. But if I was to sell it today and I lost $20,000 value, then I would need to get that $20,000 back plus the $20,000 that I could have made in 2 years. And that's $40,000. So the question to myself is, can I make more than $40,000 worth of selling leopard geckos in 2 years if I sell out of my ball pythons and just get rid of everything super cheap really quick? You know what I mean? So that's the other thing that you need to consider as well. But These are really, really cool. Check out these Afghanicuses. They have a little bit of a tangerine hue to them. They were just crossed into like bold, hyperxanthic bold stuff, but hyperxanthic bold still has the potential to carry tangerine in them, you know, like a lot of leopard geckos do, just because tangerine was bred into a lot of leopard geckos. And so technically it kind of lingers inside of those animals, you know, just like human beings. Like you might not be very tall and your parents might not be very tall. But if you have a great grandparent that's very tall, that means that technically you have genes inside of you that could be passed on to your offspring to make them very tall. You know what I mean? Like there's always that possibility of the way that genetics works, you know? Yeah, Norman, I'm gonna have to show you that pink one. If you message me after the stream, I'll send you some pictures of it. It's not like bright, bright pink, but you could definitely see like pink hues in it. And when it was a baby, it was way more pink as a baby, but it's still pretty pink now. And it's not albino too. That's the key too. So, all right, this is the last one, and then it looks like I'm gonna have to head to dinner here. Sometimes the comments like shoot way up to the top, so that's just what it did right now. All right, so we got Rob Base saying lizard. We got Bam Bam saying lizard gang. I'm part of the lizard gang too. I like that. Maybe I'll make a YouTube channel, lizard gang, reptiles or something. We got Zach as far as snakes. See, Zach is somebody that actually likes snakes more than he likes lizards, you know? Which there's a lot of people. There's even some, you know, there's a lot of women and a lot of young girls that are in the hobby today, a lot more than earlier before in the past. And even them, some of those, like you would think that a girl traditionally, right, traditionally would not like snakes, but there are tons of girls that like snakes way more than lizards. You know what I mean? All right. Well, I'm going to have to try to answer some of these questions maybe when I get back later because I need to take off to dinner right now. But it's been really fun hanging with you guys, talking with you guys. Oh, yeah, Norman, it was Whitney's mom and dad that we're going out to dinner with. But yeah, I will definitely show whatever family members are around when I can. I just told them that we have to leave at a certain time, and I realized that that time is like 4 minutes away, and I still have to like close up my windows and doors and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and end it there. But I love you guys. Thank you for being along in this live. I'll try to do a live on Friday. If not, we'll be back here for a live next Monday around this same time. And then if I have time, hopefully I'm going to try to get a video out this week because I know it's been a while since my last video. I'm so anxious to like want to make videos. It's just been really busy. But I promise you guys, as soon as I have the time and availability, we will be making more videos. So thank you guys. I hope you have a good night. And until next time, have a geeky gecko. Great night. Great time. All right. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Selling in the billions each year, Rainbow Mealworms is your one-stop shop for all your insect needs. Their quality feeders and A-plus customer service keep me coming back to support the health and growth of all of our animals. Visit them today at rainbowmealworms.net to place your order.